Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to Q&A, the show where I take your questions from YouTube and Twitter and answer them here in video format. A ton of questions to get into today, so I'm just going to jump right into it. First question comes from David Welker, who says, "Hey, Q, are you expecting a lot of change in the coaching staff this offseason?" No. I don't think there's going to be that much change. Maybe if they take out Alex Van Pelt, they switch out offensive coordinators, that brings in a whole new offensive staff. But I think what the organization is going to bet on and what I'm going to bet on is Kevin Stefanski is going to improve from year 2 to year 3, right? He had the great first year, a down second year, and hopefully he's going to learn from the mistakes of this year, him and his whole staff included, and kind of grow from there. Look, the problems the Browns have on offense, I don't think get solved by firing one or two individuals on it, right? You can fire Alex Van Pelt, and yeah, that would be the most convenient person to fire for this offense, but is that really going to help, right? Because Alex Van Pelt's offensive philosophy we have seen multiple times, not that different from Kevin Stefanski's, right? It is about the same. So they're in lockstep on that offensive philosophy. It's just it needs some adjustments. It needs the screws tighten a little bit, and it needs better level of execution too from the players in it. So we'll see what happens in the offseason. I wouldn't expect a bunch of coaching changes this year. It wouldn't seem like that's going to be the direction that the Cleveland Browns are going to go in. But the next question comes from Fark, who says, "Hey, Q, with the offseason fast approaching, what inevitable changes do you think we will need to make in order to replicate the level of success we had for Kevin's first year? Feel like we're too one-dimensional by design, while Joe Woods' system primary reason isn't the primary reason we lost yesterday. His prevent defense leaves a lot to be desired regarding the level of talent." I swear sometimes people just say Joe Woods prevent defense, and it's just a buzzword now. Joe Woods was not running a prevent yet on Monday, right? Like I think that's very hard to say when you look at how often the Browns blitzed on Monday, especially in that final drive, to say he was in a prevent. He was not in a prevent. That's just not true. And honestly, even if he was playing some off coverage, it's 100% justified, dude. Like, you were down to MJ Stewart and Richard LeCounte in that secondary. You're going to play off coverage. I don't care who you are, right? Even if you're the Baltimore Ravens in that situation, you're going to play off coverage because those aren't your starters. But even with that being the case, he let those guys sit in man on man a lot in that game, more than I think he should have. I think he should have played more off zone, especially in that last drive. But he went aggressive. He went with the blitz. He wanted to put the game in Miles' hand. I can't hate on that logic. So the idea that Joe Woods was running like prevent defense on Monday, I don't know where that came from. It's just not true. And then when it comes to Kevin Stefanski, what can be done to replicate that level of success that he had? One, the team has to execute better. Like, I really think a lot of this comes down to players not playing well. Baker has to be better than he was this year, next year, right? Because I don't care who's the coach. It could be Andy Reid. It could be Bill Belichick. If Baker's giving you this level of play at quarterback, this is the type of offense that you're going to farm out there, right? Because a lot of this stuff, I know we have said that this offense runs off of the running game. It's just not true. A lot of this stuff requires the quarterback to be playing at a certain level in order for everything else to work, right? When Baker's playing well, all of a sudden the run game's better. It's not a coincidence. When Nick Chubb's playing well, the passing game's still the passing game. So in order for this offense to look like it should, Baker in this wide receiving room and tight end room and whatever you want to blame it on in the passing game, it has to be better from an on-field standpoint. And I think Baker Mayfield's been a big part of that. I think the wide receivers have been a part of that, and I think the tight ends have been a part of that. But nobody takes a bigger chunk of blame in the passing game than the quarterback. And I just think, quite frankly, you just haven't had good quarterback play this year, and that's really affected it. And when Kevin had a good offense the year before, you were getting good quarterback play from Baker Mayfield. That's the big difference, honestly, to me. The next question comes from Charlie Cummings, who says, "Do you believe that the Browns were too conservative on that last possession? Do you think the team needs to make changes to their coaching staff and offensive philosophy? Do I think the Browns ran a conservative play call on that last possession? Absolutely. Do I have a problem with it this time? No. Look, you got Nick Mullins out there. And I know Nick Mullins made that 4th and 5 play, but I felt like you squeezed all the toothpaste out of that tube after that play, right? Like, I don't think Nick Mullins had another play in him, and I don't think it would be reasonable to expect that Nick Mullins had another play in him. It would be reasonable to expect that Nick Chubb could get 4 yards, right? In that situation, when you're down that many players, you're going to go, hey, who do I want to put the game in the hands of? Nick Chubb in the run game or Nick Mullins? You're absolutely wrong if you're going to tell me that even before that game, you would have said Nick Mullins. And I think most people would say, hey, put the game in Nick Chubb's hand. He put the game in Nick Chubb's hand. Nick Chubb did not deliver, right? For multiple reasons. We can blame it on the offensive line, whoever you want to blame it on. The game was put in Nick Chubb's hand. He did not deliver, right? This all goes away if Nick Chubb gets 4 yards on that last possession. He does not. So I don't have a problem with how they called that possession, because what else was he supposed to do, right? Was he supposed to go exotic there and run a trick play? Was he supposed to put the game in Nick Mullins' hand in an empty set when he has Nick Chubb there? And if he does not do that, right, if he throws the ball with Nick Mullins, we're sitting here talking about how could they not put the game in Nick Chubb's hand? It was only 4 yards, right? So this is one of those catch-22 situations. You cannot win in this situation. And again, I am not a defender of Alex Van Pelt. Anybody who has watched this channel for any period of time knows that for a fact. I am not a dude who's been out here defending Alex Van Pelt or this offense at all. But in that situation, what else are they supposed to do? Run a play action play? Like, you really want to put the game in Nick Mullins' hands at that point in the game? Or do you want to run the ball with Nick Chubb and think, hey, if I don't get it here with Nick Chubb, I'm going to put the game in my defense's hand, which has been playing well? I don't mind that decision. It's just we did not overcome, or we did not come through on those choices. But philosophically, I think the decisions were sound. The next question comes from Brian, who says, in the game against Green Bay, which areas do the Browns need to have a big game? Does it all fall solely on the defense or offense? Also, which players do you think need to have a good game? Baker Mayfield needs to have a very, very, very good game for the Browns to win, right? I don't think this is going to be a under 20-point game. I think this is going to be a game where you need to score 30. And this offense can only score 30 if Baker Mayfield is playing well. So Baker needs to come off that list, and he needs to have his best game of the season in order for the Browns to win that game, honestly. Like, it's a lot on his shoulders, but he's a number 1 overall pick. He is the guy that people want to pay a ton of money to play quarterback here. So he's going to get a lot on his shoulders. And in order for the Browns to win, he needs to put the team on his shoulders and have a big game. Whether you think he can do that, that's up to you. But that's why I think it's going to take to beat Green Bay. Next question comes from the Living Miracle, who says, why/how is the NFL different than college football? The biggest difference from what I can ascertain from people who have actually made that leap, because, I've never played NFL or college football. But the biggest difference that they say is closing speed, right? And you can tell it from watching it. But the amount of time that plays can take to develop in college is drastically longer. The amount of time that you have as a quarterback in the passing windows for plays to close in college is drastically different. It's just that speed, right? Not just like long speed, but that closing speed. Everybody in the NFL is at least quick if they're not fast. And closing speed closes real fast. It's the reason why Nick Mullins or a Case Keenum have great success in college despite not having great arm strength, because one of the things that happens with arm strength is you can push the ball far down the field, but it takes a real long time to get there, relatively speaking. And when that is the case in college, those safeties aren't fast enough to close in despite how long it takes. In the NFL, they'll close in on that and make a play on it. So closing speed is the real difference there. And it's also why faster running backs have a trouble getting the edge in the NFL versus in college, where, again, the closing speed on defensive linemen drastically different. But it's really just closing speed, athleticism, size. It's a world of difference between college and NFL from what I can take from people who have actually made the jump. The next question is from Preston, who says, say the Browns pull a Christmas miracle and upset the Packers. How likely is it that the Browns can beat the Steelers and the Bengals? Obviously, easier said than done, but I think if they can just click, we can have a real shot. I think if the Browns get past Green Bay, I think you can have semi-reason to be excited. I don't think the Steelers are going to sweep the Browns. And when it comes to the Bengals, for whatever reason, that's just a team that this version of the Browns has been able to get up and play a good game against, right? So I feel confident about their ability to win both those games. Not like I think that they're going to be overwhelming favorites or anything, but I still would feel better about their ability to win those games versus their ability to beat the Packers on the road. But if they do upset the Packers on the road, we can seriously start talking about the playoffs. But until they do that, it's not that serious of a conversation because they got to get that hurdle out the way. The next question comes from Omar, who says, who do we root for, Ravens or Bengals this week? You're going to want the Bengals to win this week because, again, you can knock the Bengals out yourself at the last game of the year if you win out. The Ravens, you need them to lose an extra game in order for the Browns to stay in the division race, and the division's the only way the Browns are probably making the playoffs. The next question and the last question of the game day is from Michael, who says, what's wrong with our running game? I think one thing that has to do with it is that the passing game has been very, very disappointing. And in past years, it has been something that teams have been willing to let beat you. This year, it's at a level to where they couldn't beat you if they tried this year in the passing game. There's a difference between not being better than the running game and then just being completely ineffective. In the passing game this year, unfortunately, has been completely ineffective. And when that's the case, it just makes it so easy to defend a run, because I know people complain about the run game being predictable, but run games by design are pretty predictable, right? Teams usually know when you're going to run the ball and if you're going to run the ball, what side. It's more about beating them or catching them out of certain packages where they're a little lighter, where it's easier to beat them man on man. It's not really that much about deception, unless you're running like a Baltimore like triple option kind of thing there. But when it comes to our running game this year, it's a combination of things, right? We can't get the heavier packages off the field because the passing game has been ineffective, absolutely ineffective. They keep those heavier packages on the field, and the Browns have to rely on the running game more, which means, yes, they're more predictable, but also the other team is more equipped to defend the run because they don't have to go lighter to, put more DBs on the field to do anything about the passing game, because even in those sets, the Browns passing game has been woeful. So that's really what's going on with the run game. I think, Nick Chubb's pressing more than he usually does, so he's trying to make a play, which is costing them some yards here or there. It just hasn't been good. Nothing on the offensive side of the ball this year has been anything worth talking about. But that's really what I think's wrong with the running game this year. But that's it for this week's Q&A. Again, guys, thank you guys for asking these questions. Have a great day. Have a good night.